Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. We are here for our Oak Show 2024 style PTF. Back with you in the Brooklyn bunker once again, joined by a man coming to us from, is it an undisclosed location on the planet Texas? JK, where are you today?
No, it's my favorite move at a hotel. Hotel rooms have horrible lighting, right? So it's like when you're doing videos like this, it's terrible. You get backlit. The bed is in the background, which I've always thought to be very creepy. Like someone was just laying there half clothed earlier. So I hate doing it in hotel rooms. So what I like to do is I go down to like the conference level floor and I just start randomly pulling on doors, and it's inevitable that you find one that's open here a little. And this is what you do. You just show up and you just get into a room like this and hope that no one comes in here and knocks on the door. And that's how we're doing it.
If we get interrupted, that's why. So we opted not to do the Oaks Monster Pod this year. We're doing this show essentially instead, where we go through all the horses. And it was a combination of things. You know, you as an audience have told us over the years that you don't listen to or watch the Oaks content nearly as much as the Derby content. And with doing the 20 individual videos and all this extra Derby content, it felt a little bit like overkill. But obviously we didn't want to give the Oaks short shrift, in the sense of, you know, we want to be chiming in on everyone. The top 10 Oaks video we did well. You have any second thoughts about the little shortcut we took here, not doing 14, 16 different Oak segments and just sort of lumping it into the one here?
No. Do I want to do 7 more interviews and 14 more thumbnails? No, I'm good.
So really, we did. You have the real answer now. We did it this way because Jonathan is lazy. It's nothing to do with it. I kid. Let's talk about this field. And we're going to do it a little differently than our usual analysis. We're going to go through the field, and then we're going to give a conclusion. We won't be able to help ourselves. I'm sure we're going to tip our hands as we do it. But let's start off with a runner called Tapit Jenallie, who drew the one runner in this one post in this race, one who took the Arkansas route, solid in the frame efforts down there in Arkansas. I really thought the run was pretty good, I thought, in the last race, sticking on well late despite a wide trip. But the problem is this is the Kentucky Oaks, and like little subtle wise guy angles for horses that look too slow, that's a trap I don't really want to go down. So even though I respect this runner and could see betting on her at some point this summer, ain't going to be in the Kentucky Oaks for me. Did you have anything to add on Tapit Jenallie, JK?
No, for the sake of the 13 to 14 other horses we're going to talk about, I'll be quick about this one. This horse has not won as a 3-year-old, has had 4 opportunities, and has not come within 3.5 lengths of the leader. Now faces the biggest and best group that she's faced so far. Pass.
Okay, there you go. We'll JK not biting on Tapit Jenallie. We'll go to the 2-hole, and a horse called Gingen takes the New York path to these Kentucky Oaks, having run in the money in 3 New York prep races. The best run was last time in the Gazelle, but again, figure-wise, form-wise, just leaves her behind the best of these. But maybe you could make a case that if they do a sort of a hold-up ground-saving run, they could try to just run into the money and maybe get, minor placing in a race like the Kentucky Oaks would do wonders for Gingen as a broodmare. But I wasn't seeing a whole lot beyond that to get me excited in this spot. Am I underrating Gingen?
No, I mean, look, I've seen, I like to say this a lot. I've seen worse horses win this race. And so there's always the opportunity. These are 3-year-olds. They can always kind of take a step up. But what I've seen from Gingen so far doesn't give me the feeling that she's going to run that well. I understand why she's here. I understand why she runs. And I think she actually worked pretty good. If you watched that work with her and Tarfa last time at Churchill Downs, I thought she worked pretty darn good there. So maybe she is improving, but she does feel like more of an underneath type to me. The biggest thing in her corner is likely Florent Geroux and Brad Cox.
Number 3 is Where's My Ring, the horse that won the Gazelle last time in a run that I thought was pretty impressive, and it demonstrated both speed and stamina. Here's the thing, though. That was a maiden win, and she was bet, which says something about the courses I think that she was running against. Definitely one that's going to have to step up again into the deeper water here. I'm a little cynical, as you can probably tell from my tone of voice, but JK, where do you stand with Where's My Ring?
It's interesting, right? She's a little bit to me like Resilience. We talk about Resilience being a horse who's adding blinkers late, kind of in the 3-year-old year. And so what you saw from that horse previously probably wasn't the truth of what that horse actually was. I think she's very similar, right? She added blinkers, and she's run well in 3 races since adding blinkers. She ran extremely well 3 races back. In the Santa Isabel, when she ran into that Baffert horse, she ran well that day. She just got beat, got a faster number, a lifetime best number. And then when she got to New York, she actually took another step forward. She's run 3 lifetime bests in a row. Lifetime bests, then she bested that, then she's bested that. Now she was comfortable on the inside, in an inside draw like this. You'd like to think that she'll shut off if she needs to. And we're obviously going to root for our friends at Lanes End Farm with Twirling Candy. Twirling Candy having an outstanding year so far, this being one of his runners that we'll see. I think she's definitely live. So far, the horses we've discussed, I think she's the most likely of the first 3 we've talked about.
We'll continue our Gazelle recap. Is it an Oaks preview or a Gazelle recap? You tell me. With number 4, Regulatory Risk. This horse ran pretty well, I thought, in the Gazelle, all things considered. A big step up off of the previous efforts. Didn't really trouble the winner in that spot. Based on the previous efforts, hard to come up with much of a case that she's going to be up to a test like this. The biggest win did come with an easy lead. This is a horse that needs to step up, but I will say this about Regulatory Risk, certainly in the right hands to step up for a spot like this.
Well, a lot of these, and I didn't say this about Where's My Ring, but I'll say it about Regulatory Risk. One of the things about the Gazelle is it is at 1 1/8. So while a lot of these horses will be answering that question for the first time, these 2 horses won't. They've run, faster numbers in a race that's 1 1/8, so that they'll handle the distance. The other thing about Chad Brown trained horses is they learn pretty early to sit on the bridle and wait for their rider's cues, which is a weapon you'd like to have in a 1 1/8 race. She's interesting. Once again, not one that I'm going to be cutting in line to bet to win, but definitely one that runs 2nd or 3rd. I'm not going to be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe Regulatory Risk ran 2nd. She definitely deserves to be in the race, but also not one that makes me warm and fuzzy as one who might get the lilies draped over her back.
Let's talk about number 5, JK. That's Thorpedo, Anna. She made her return to the race as a winning one in the fantasy, drew off, looking visually impressive, and also won in a good time. This horse just cost $40,000, which is obviously not quite like some of the ridiculously valuable at sale type runners in this race. But I don't know. Does that preclude her from doing well in a race like the Oaks? This horse has been working well, and I've got to call her a contender, even if one that I'd put in like the 6-1 range. And I think that's probably just going to be about the price. But this is a horse I really want to get your opinion on.
Well, first of all, like I just mentioned, she's got to answer the question about the 1 1/8. She ran well last time, right? I thought she got a pretty soft trip, a pretty easy trip. She's one of those horses that kind of looks like 6 other horses, where they're all kind of those upper 80s, lower 90s types, where if they get the right trip and they wake up on the right side of the bed and the sun hits the right part of the track, they can win. But there's not a whole lot to grab onto. There's not a whole lot I can give you and tell you a story about how Thorpedo Anna's going to win. I tell you, Brian Hernandez is a part of the narrative. He's outstanding. He makes phenomenal decisions. Richie Migliori said it on the Monster podcast we did talking about Mystic Dan, that he thinks that Brian Hernandez is a top 5 rider in this country that doesn't get the credit for being a top 5 rider in this country. So that's definitely in her corner as well. She's just one of those that if she wins, she beats me. But I wouldn't be shocked. I just can't have all these horses that look exactly the same.
Right. And you're speaking of it more from a horizontal betting point of view. I think if you were looking, you don't bet a lot of verticals, I know, but if you did, I mean, this would certainly be one. And the Hernandez angle, when you have a rider, a good underrated rider with local knowledge, those can be very good horses to toss in underneath. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Because you're going to get a good trip, right? And I said, she's a formidable horse. So with the right trip, she can definitely be there late, and she'll be a little bit ignored. I think she'll be a bigger price than 6-1.
All right. Well, that's all encouraging for vertical play there. We'll talk about number 6, Lemon Muffin, trained by the venerable one, D. Wayne Lucas, won the maiden in the Honeybee back at a time when the barn was absolutely flying, seemed to regress in the fantasy, has earned the place in the field, but with so many fast fillies, for me, this is one who looks on the outside looking in.
Yeah, no interest for me. And I'm not, I'm more of a Lime guy. Anyways, I think it's probably growing up in Texas, but these recent trips to Italy have kind of brought the lemon back a little bit for me. So it's coming back, but I have no interest in a lemon muffin, and I don't necessarily have interest in this horse either. I think 2 times ago was the time, but I bet she'll run a lot the rest of the year.
I'm surprised we didn't get a limoncello reference in there, knowing your newfound Italian connection and that amazingly fun weekend we had over there just about a year ago. We'll proceed with number 7, Fiona's Magic. This one looked like a potential Oaks player after the upset win in the Devona Dale, but I think she pretty much had her things her own way that day, being able to have an easy lead. The wheels came off in the Gulfstream Park Oaks when challenged, first to quit in that speed duel. This is not going to be an easy pace situation with the likes of Where's My Ring and Into Champagne, and as such, Fiona's Magic feels like one I will probably be betting against. Am I underrating her?
I don't think you're underrating her. I agree with everything you said. I do think that the recency bias that we see in horse racing often will have her ignored based on her last run. But it wasn't like, one of those situations where it's not like she got beat and ran a 72 buyer. Like, she just didn't really run. And a lot of those times in those situations, I have no problem putting a line through it. Maybe she stepped on a rock. Maybe she had a cold. Maybe she had some issue that prevented her from running her best that day. But if you look at her previous runs, she deserves to be a shorter price than she's likely going to be. A type that I would definitely try to spice up some exotics with underneath, but not necessarily a win candidate.
Interesting. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's going to be all about how that pace battle develops. We'll get to that when we get to our conclusion of this video /audio, if you're listening, once we get through that. I do want to take a moment, though, to tell people we do have a ton of great content up on the YouTube channel with more to come this week. Get on there, subscribe to the In the Money Media channel. Make sure you click that notification bell as well so you don't miss any of the content we're pumping out. We're going to keep that going too. I mean, obviously Derby, a main focus, Breeders' Cup, a main focus, but we've had such interest in it. I'm sure we're going to keep some cool videos coming throughout these summer months as well that we're eagerly anticipating. Let's get back to these fillies in the Kentucky Oaks with number 8, Tarfa, runner who's 4 of 5 lifetime, run some fast figures, beaten some tough fillies. On the bloodlines, you would think age and distance are going to continue to be your friend. This looks like a legitimate Oaks favorite to me in terms of figures and form, but it's not an easy assignment against this level of competition. And for me, the 7-2, 3-1 that she's going to be, I'm sort of expecting just to be the price. I'm still sort of on the fence of how much I'm going to be mixing her in, but there's no way she isn't a contender by any definition, I would think. How much do you like Tarfa?
Yeah, I mean, I like her a lot. I mean, she deserves to be the favorite. But she's not stand out enough to just kind of lean on her and just to say she's the best horse. But I just have a hard time really kind of leaning on her in the situation. And I think that your point you made earlier about me being more of a horizontal player and making sure you catch the winner for the Oaks, whether you're playing the very underrated Oaks Derby double, whether you're paying a lot of these multi-race wagers, these 2-day pick sixes, things like that involve this race. It is the Oaks. It is the female version of the Derby. It's on Friday and it's a big day. We want to be involved. And she's a horse that I'll definitely use. She's tactical. She's got Brad. She's got Flavian. She's drawn well for this. She's overcome adversity. She can go quickly. She's got some nice pace numbers. She checks every box except for the fact that this race just feels a little bit more interesting than just her. And that's kind of where my holdup is. She's definitely one that I'll use as an A. She's definitely a one that will be on every ticket, but it's not a single ice cold single and move on like the male version of this race is starting to feel like towards me.
We talked about the content we've got coming up this weekend. One really fun thing we're doing in conjunction with our partners at Daily Racing Form and America's Best Racing, and maybe you're even watching this as part of DerbythOn, but if you're listening beforehand, Wednesday at noon, the coverage starts between our 3 entities. We're going to have 24 hours of Derby coverage with a thick dose of In the Money media in there, including the whole Monster Pod and some live coverage that you're not going to find anywhere else. Specifically, our final answer show. JK already has tipped his hand about who he'll be picking as his Derby final answer, but we'll be going through the whole pick 5 there, and it's going to be a great show. You can buy tickets if you're in Lexington and come join us live. If you're watching this during DerbythOn, it's probably too late, but who knows? There might be something last minute. InTheMoneyPodcast.com/event, the place to go to buy tickets live. If not, watch it as part of DerbythOn It's gonna be a blast. We're raising money for some great charities. You'll hear all about those during other parts of the broadcast. And I like putting our money where our mouth is, JK. We talk a lot about people in this industry often, fighting for their own little corner of the pie and not trying to work with others and make the pie bigger. One thing about DerbythOn, I love the fact that, these entities like America's Best Racing with Dan Torchman over there specifically, and DRF and Rich Rosa getting to do more fun stuff with them. I'm all about it.
Absolutely. Getting involved and kind of having multiple entities pushing out good content. I think it's a smart way to promote the sport.
And all for a great cause, or several great causes. I'm sure we'll be flashing up on the screen pretty much constantly where you can go to donate. I think it's going to be drf.com/derbython. I'll take a guess and throw that URL out there in the world. Please help us out and enjoy the show. Speaking of the show, it goes on with a discussion of number 9 in these Kentucky Oaks. That's Everland making her dirt debut here. That's not an easy place to do that. I didn't see much, JK, going through the tape on Everland to suggest she can be competitive at this level. Though I will say this, on the bloodlines, you would think dirt would be okay, but I got to be honest, this reformed maiden claimer, maybe I'll say, would be a shock to me at least.
If Jonathan Thomas decided to run this horse at Kentucky Downs on the turf, fly up to Toronto, run on the synthetic, run a synthetic in Cincinnati at Turfway, and then drop for a tag, it's enough for me to realize this horse likely can't stand up on dirt. I'll pass.
Number 10 is Into Champagne. Started her career a perfect 2 for 2 in sprint races. And then I thought going long, ran a little bit better than it looked. That second to Fiona's Magic, I think, is okay form. And then reversed that form in the Gulfstream Park Oaks, proving the best of speed there before getting swamped by the closers. Could lead this early, could be part of the pace factor for sure. Will she be able to hold off those good closers again on the big tay? I'm not so sure. In the end, I left Into Champagne as a hunch play for Rupert Holmes fans. If you know that song, JK, Escape, the Pina Colada song. I am Into Champagne. No acknowledgement. Okay. Anyway, those of you who get it, get it.
I don't know music from people that have full names. We've talked about this before. I think she's interesting, right? I think she is an interesting type that, if you were doing that kind of, I know Travis Stone likes to talk about this. He's done it before, and Nick Tamero plays this way. I don't think Jack Jenkins does too often, but some other players that we know and respect, that kind of like reverse key, where you find a horse, key him in 3rd and 4th in the super. I think this is a wonderful horse to do that with, right? She's forward. Ian Wilkes horses continue to improve. They're usually the next race they run is the best race they're going to run. I thought she ran sneaky well in that race down in Gulfstream with Ways and Mean and Power Squeeze. I think she's very interesting underneath. Once again, not one that I envision getting her picture taken. I just think there might be 3 or 4 really talented horses in this race that are going to probably overtake her when they get a little bit closer to the wire. But I think she's very interesting. Not a horse I would ignore. A horse I'd love to have as a B type in multi-race wagers, right? Not even a C, a B type, where if she wins at 12-1 or 14-1 or whatever it is, I'm going to pick up some pieces there. But not one that I love, but definitely one that I'll use.
I was saving this question for the verdict part later, but I think I'll ask it now. The way you speak about her, I'm taking a guess that you think she's going to prove to be the best speed, and then it's just a question of if the closers come get her. I mean, of the speed types, is she the one that you like the best, would you say?
Yeah, I think she'll be forward. And that's not really Ian Wilkes' style, too, right? He's like, obviously Fort Lawn was forward, but like he's not one that's going to like pin them away from these young horses and run them off their feet. I think she's doing that naturally with talent. So I think she's very interesting as a horse to use, which should be a pretty nice price.
Number 11 is Ways and Means. We look at that same form line. This one looked like an Oaks contender as far back as last summer, I'd say, JK, when she made that debut run that had the jaws on the floor up there at Saratoga. Obviously, things haven't gone to plan since then. Didn't win the second race at Saratoga, and that preceded a long trip to the bench. But boy, was I impressed with her comeback race. Just, to me, ran out of gas, as you might expect from off a long layoff with a bigger goal, namely this race in mind. Chad can bring him back fully formed, but he also doesn't squeeze the lemon when there's a bigger target coming up. I'm shocked at how good the prices are on this one in the UK. You ain't going to see no 9-1 on the tote, but if you're an international viewer, That's a good price. Let's just put it that way. I think Ways and Means is very appealing and definitely one on my short list. Are you still on the bandwagon for Ways and Means?
Yeah, I fully am. I think there'll probably be a little bit of value there as well. Like she's gonna take some attention, but there's gonna be a lot of people that don't believe because of the obstacle that she's had to face. I'm gonna say this. I've said it before on these airways. I'll say it again. Hanging out one morning by Chad Brown's barn at Saratoga before these horses ever ran. Some people were talking about a couple of Pletcher runners that could be really good, fillies, and a couple of these and a couple of that. And Chad very boastfully said they better be, because I might have one of the best dirt horses I've ever trained. It's this Practical Joke filly. And then his exercise rider came by. He asked him, hey, they say they got this horse that might be pretty good. What do you think? He says they better take a good look at her in the gate because it's the last time they're going to see her. and she performed that way, like that horse in her debut. Then she did come back, and then she had some issues. She was injured in that race. See, if you remember, on the backside, there was a little bit of a check and a stumble on the backside when she lost the spin away. And she was injured in that race. She had all this time off. She came back in the Oaks, had a horrible trip in the Oaks, ran well off in that comeback race. I think she's primed to run her best race ever. If she runs her best race ever, it's supposed to be 100 buyer-ish. And if she runs 100 buyer-ish, then she could get those Oaks draped over her shoulders. I think she's a very talented horse, a very interesting horse, and one that will be on every ticket. There'll be A's everywhere, and I'm very certain that she's going to be my selection to win the 2024 Kentucky Oaks.
We'll move on to a filly who just beat the filly we just spoke about in glowing terms. That's number 12, Power Squeeze. She was the perfect trip winner of that Gulfstream Park Oaks, a race where, as we've noted, Ways and Means had all manner of trouble. Power Squeeze ran a good figure that day, certainly belongs in the betting, or the horse that makes sense. But I just can't shake the feeling, JK, that last time was the time for Power Squeeze, and Ways and Means is supposed to move forward and past her. What do you think of Power Squeeze?
Really, it's pretty straightforward thoughts. I mean, yes, I think she got an advantageous situation when Ways and Means had a little bit of trouble, but she did beat a very talented horse in Ways and Means. She's undefeated going a mile or longer. She's on a 4-race win streak, so she likes to get her picture taken, and the distance shouldn't be a problem for her. And look, I think she's interesting. I think she definitely can be involved in the late stages of this race. I think some of the big girls have to not show up in order for her to win, kind of what happened in her last race, right? Ways and Means kind of had that trouble. She'll be right there with a chance to win. And definitely want to shout her out and our friends at Lane's Inn, a daughter of Union Rags. She's look, you don't want to trade places with anyone when you're on a 4-race win streak and you're winning races around a mile or higher. I think Power Squeeze is interesting underneath. Not a cut in line to better to win type, but definitely one that I'd love to have as like a B or a C in multi-race wagers.
Number 13 is Just FYI, your 2-year-old champion. She suffered her first defeat in the Ashland, but in doing so, did something she'd never done before, JK, and that's run a truly fast race on the clock. So the question then becomes, is she one that's likely to step up second time off the layoff and confirm the quality that made her a 2-year-old champ and confirm that she has now this new dimension of being a truly fast runner? Well, I'll tell you what, with Bill Mott calling the shots, how many times on these airwaves we talk about Bill Mott with a target? This is the target, not the Ashland. I think you ignore Just FYI at your own peril in this spot, though some may still be questioning whether or not she's fast enough. Where do you stand?
Well, I'll invite everyone to close your eyes and pretend you're Bill Mott for a second and say to yourself, I have a 2-year-old champion who was undefeated, and I'm gonna bring her back to the Ashland in April, and I'm gonna have her fully ready to rock and roll. I'm gonna get her to run her lifetime best race in the Ashland, and then open your eyes and realize that never happened. He said, I have a 2-year-old champion who's never lost. I'm going to set her up perfectly to run her lifetime best race and the biggest race of her career, the Grade 1 Kentucky Oaks. And that's exactly what he's going to do. She's going to take another step forward. She ran extremely well in the Ashland. Considering that situation, I think she's one of 3 horses that I believe can truly win this race, that are likely to win this race. She's one of them. I just worry her price is going to be a little bit shorter than I would like for it to be. And I believe that Tarfa and her are going to take money to make Ways and Means too much of an opportunity for me, but I have no problem. I would never argue with anyone about any of these 3 horses winning. And in fact, if someone annoys me, enough and asks me who I like walking around somewhere, I might give him this horse.
What about the post? How much of a problem is it for a filly like Just FYI being out here in the 13?
I mean, there's a long run to the first turn. They're going to spread themselves out in here. There's a lot of no-hopers in this race. And I think when there's a lot of no-hopers or a lot of horses that really have to get lucky to win, I think their connections know that, is when you start getting fast paces because horses get kind of just sent along. Like, what are you going to do? Sit behind a horse like Just FY on Run Buyer? I don't think people feel that way. So I think the pace will be quick enough. I think they'll be spread out enough. I'm not too worried about her getting a nice trip from out there. It's pretty mischievous one from the 14 last year. And I feel like the Cassius King horse, I'm going blank on her name, with the Fleet Alex Silks. I feel like she broke from the outside. Catherine Sophia, I want to say she was far out. Maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe she was the 2, and I'm making things up. But I don't think it makes a difference.
Cardinal rule of broadcasting: you don't bring up things you don't know the answer to, especially when I've got 15 balls in the air. I could probably come up with something here, but I'm empty. Speaking of the 14 post, though, we're going to go right to Leslie's Rose, this $1 million baby who was a very impressive winner in the Ashland, making up for that odds-on defeat in the Devona Dale. Looked like a completely different animal to me in Kentucky, and I think you have to consider her a contender, even from the potentially difficult post. We just talked about the draw. It can be done, but I'm going to want a little bit better of a price to involve a horse like Leslie's Rose in my wagers. As the Ashland winner, I don't know that you're going to see the price that I need, but I'm still intrigued by this one. I don't want to dismiss her out of hand. Where did you land on Leslie's Rose?
Well, first of all, Catherine Sophia was the 12. I was right about that. So I wanted to make sure I got that out there. And also, Untappable was the 13, and Plum Pretty was the 12. So I don't think there's any problems being drawn towards the outside. Leslie's Rose is fine. I thought she ran extremely well last time. Felt like kind of got the run of the race. She's also going to be kind of wide around there. And I don't mind taking a horse that I love wide, because then I feel like that horse is talented enough to overcome a wide trip if it happens. But I do not like taking horses that I like that are wide, because if they don't get that perfect trip, they're only like types, not love types. That's kind of how I feel about Leslie's Rose. I think she'll be bet. I think I'll try to beat her. I think maybe there's some value in trying to beat her. You can't use all the logicals, although I think this is going to be a formful race. She's going to be one that I'll probably let beat me.
We have 2 minutes left, and we've got 2 horses, but they're AEs, and the verdict to get to, JK. So just really quickly, anything to say about Our Pretty Woman or Candied? For me, Our Pretty Woman, possible pace factor, but I don't love, and I feel like Candied, it would be a long shot should she somehow draw in. Anything more on either of those?
Yeah, I mean, real quick, Our Pretty Woman, it does have a pace scenario from out there. And, Joel, he finds himself on the front end often. And if that happens, I think that she's interesting. Candy, she's got some back class, but she hasn't really shown up as of late. Maybe she kind of gets in and figures it out all of a sudden. But no, I think those two don't concern me too much. But I'd like to think that one of them will get in, just the way that things have been trending and racing. With a lot of the kind of the changes and regulations, you'd like to think that they're going to be pretty tough with the decisions that are made in terms of who's going to be running and not running. And you'd like to think that one of these might sneak in.
We've just got a minute left. I'm picking Ways and Means, the 11 runner in this spot. For me, 13, Just FYI. That's my other A runner. I'm going to look to use the 14, Leslie's Rose, and the 8, Tarfa, more as B types and ones to mix in the exotics. Give us your approach to how you're going to play this year's Kentucky Oaks, and let's get out of here.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Ways and Means will be my top choice. Just FYI, another one I think is very interesting. I'll use as kind of a secondary. Tarfa's not going to beat me on that A line. It's a horse I got to have based on some other opinions I want to make sure I get to in terms of that 2-day pick 6, same day pick 6, pick 5, all those types of things. Power squeezing into Champagne are horses that I will try to get cute with underneath as B types, underneath types, or even kind of some long shot hopes in case something goes wrong. Look, Dreaming of Julia, I thought she couldn't lose, and she ran 4th, if I'm not mistaken.
We're out of time. Appreciate you, JK. For much more on this Oaks card and the Derby card, undercard races, etc., make sure you check out that Final Answers show. You can watch it as part of DerbythOn. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel and click that notification bell, and make sure you don't miss it that way either. That's going to be streaming live at 7 on Wednesday. Also going to be live as part of DerbythOn. For JK, I'm Peter Thomas Fornatow. May you win all your photos.